Welcome all to the next practical session of Blender. This is the part 2 of modeling, and in this session we would enhance our knowledge in 3D modeling and create a mug using more advanced techniques of Blender. There are many ways in which the elements can be created in Blender. It all depends upon how much you know, practice, and more onto your creativity and visualization skills. As I already told that Blender is bit complex as compared to other 3D softwares, but once you get hold over the shortcuts, the basics of Blender, it would be very easy to handle and work around. So one guru mantra I just want to give you guys for learning this Blender software is that practice, practice, and practice, and be creative. Additionally, I would like to quote about Pareto's principle here, which is also known as your 80-20 rule. Pareto principle is basically a prediction that 80% of effects come from 20% of causes. The same thing applies to the software. So what I just want to say is that 80% of the elements, whatever you are just going to create in Blender, they can be created using 20% of the features of the Blender software. Fine. So with this, I'm just going to start up this particular session. This session is basically designed for my audience in such a way so that my audience get acquainted with some more advanced techniques of Blender. So without wasting time, let's start. So now what we are just going to do, we are just going to design or develop one model, 3D model, which would be a model of a mug. Fine. For that particular thing, firstly, what you have to understand is the basic geometry of mug. Fine. So if let us suppose I am just going to start up with this cube. So I have to just make on some extra effort to just bring it into the shape of that particular cup. But if I am just going to start up with the basic geometry of a mug, then obviously I would going to take some less time. So initially I have to understand that what is the basic geometry of any model what I'm just going to design in this 3D software. So as we know that the basic design of cup is more or less a type of a cylindrical form. So I am just going to start up with a cylinder, and then we are just going to edit its vertices, edges and faces to just give it a nice look of a cup. Fine. So right now what I'm just going to do that I'm just going to delete this additional mesh which is just lying in this 3D view. So for delete, I hope you remember the shortcuts, that is delete key, or you can press X. So I'm pressing delete key and I'm just going to delete that. Now I just want to add some model into that. For adding a model, I had just told you the shortcut, that is Shift plus A. Otherwise what you can do, you can simply go to this add panel, and from here, see there is a button saying mesh. Underneath your mesh you have the different meshes or primitives available with you. So I am just going to click onto this cylinder. Fine. So I have just clicked onto that type of a cylinder. Now I am entering into front viewport. For entering into front viewport, the shortcut is 1. Fine. So now I am just going to make it, you can say, I'm just going to scaling up this particular mesh so that it is just going to take the basic geometry of mug. For that, what I'm just going to do, I'm just simply pressing S for scaling, and under your Z axis, I am just going to scaling it up. Fine. Similarly, I am pressing S for scaling, and in your Y panel, I am just going to increase its size, and again pressing S, X, just want to make it a bit thicker. So this is a type of a basic geometry what I basically want for my cup. I am just going to design a corporate style mug or corporate style cup into this software. Now it basically all depends upon you what type of basic geometry you basically want for that cup. But I just know I just want a complete, simple and a corporate style look for this particular mug. So now what I'm just going to do, obviously I have to edit this mug. For editing this mug, I have to enter into my edit mode. Fine. So as soon as I enter into my edit mode, you can see now I can edit this particular object. And I had already told you that for editing some object, there are three different modes in which you can work. One is your vertices mode, second is your edge mode, and third is your faces mode. So now what I'm just going to do, that I am just going to enter into my faces mode. But before that, I have to deselect that object. So I have pressed A. Now I am entering into my faces mode, and I have just clicked on to that type of stuff, and I am saying delete. As soon as I press X or delete key, it will ask me that what area I need to delete. Its vertices, its edges, its faces, only edges and faces, and only faces. I would say faces. So as soon as I just clicked onto that type of stuff, you can see now this cup is basically emptied. Fine. One more thing I just want to do. I am just entering into my object mode. I am just seeing it is bit not in a proper form, so I am doing S, and in my axis I am just trying to give it a shape. Okay, fine. So again, entering into my object mode, pressing 1, I am entering into my front mode. So this is what I had done. I had emptied this type of a cup. Fine. Now after that, as I already told you, that I am just going to design a corporate style of a mug. So this is the basic geometry for that type of a thing. Now I have to concentrate on its handle. For making a handle, again there are different type of ways in which we can actually create the handle of a mug. I can just create some additional geometry and just try to put it around here, so it will look like its handle. But obviously if I'm just going to create some additional object and I'm just going to put it around in that particular way, the problem is that it will not look natural. I just want to give a natural look. So for that, see, I'm just going to use one technique. I am repeating that there are n number of techniques, but I am just going to use one technique. So just look at your computer screens very carefully. Now I am just going to use another mesh in Blender, that is something about your curves. We have not worked with curves, so now I'm just going to work with curves, which is again one of the advanced feature of Blender. So in this, what I'm just going to do, I am just going to click on mesh, and here, firstly, what you have to just remember one thing. Whenever you have to create some object in Blender, you need to be in your object mode. So we have to come around in object mode. Now what I have to do, add mesh, and from here what I'm just going to do is I just want to create one curve. Fine. Otherwise I will press Shift plus A, and from here I will say curve, and under this I am just creating one path. Fine. You can go from here to add panel, or simply you can hit the shortcut Shift plus A. I prefer the shortcuts, so that's why I had just tried to create my curve with the help of this shortcut. So now I am just going to edit this curve. For editing the curve, obviously I have to enter into my object mode. Then see, this curve or this path, it has some vertices. You can see the vertices in your computer screen. So now what I have to do, I have to edit these vertices. Now for selecting the vertex, I already told you the shortcuts. That is simply you have to press the right click, and I am just going to edit the vertices of this handle. Fine. Now I am just going to give a nice look of a handle. So just let me quickly do that. So I am playing around with the vertices. Now it again going to depend upon that what type of handle basically you are trying to prefer. I'm trying to give a basic geometry of handle. Fine. So this is what I had done. So I am just entering into my object mode and just bringing this handle here. So right now it's bit you can say bigger than the cup. So for that, what I have to do, I have to press S and I am just scaling it down, trying to bring out here, again entering into my edit mode and trying to replicate the above front, or the front which is over here, with the bottom front of the cup. Fine. So okay, object mode. Now we have to just see where this object, basically this curve rather, lies. For that I am just pressing into 7 and I am just trying to see where it is being placed. Okay, fine. Again entering into front mode by pressing 1. Now this is a simple path. Now what we have to do, again just look the computer screen very carefully. I am just going to add one another shape here. Shift plus A, under your curve I am just going to have this circle. Fine. So as soon as I am just going to click onto this particular circle, this is again a type of a path. Fine. So I am just making it size a bit smaller. Fine. Now what I am just going to do, I am just going to put the shape of this circle around this path. This is what I am aiming for. So for that, what we have to do, we have to simply click onto this path, and from our properties panel, we have to go to this small button which basically depicts your curve. So I'm just going to click onto this, and here under geometries panel, what you are just going to do, under this geometries panel, you have to go to this bevel object. So as soon as you are just going to click onto this bevel object, it displays whatever the objects or whatever the curves are just going to be placed in your 3D file. So simply you have to click onto this Bezier circle. So as soon as you had just clicked onto this Bezier circle, you might have seen that that circle has basically taken up the shape of this particular path. Fine. So okay. So now what I just want, right now if we are just going to look at the geometry of a cup, it is more or less, it is not like smoothened out. It has some faces, but when we are just going to look towards the handle of a cup, it is more or less smoothened out. So I just want to actually match both these geometries. For that, what we have to do, we have to click onto this handle, and again what I'm just going to do, under this curves panel only, there is one concept of resolution. Under, you can see this is the resolution. Resolution basically depicts that how this model, whatever the model it is, how it looks like, what is the basic geometry of that. Right now the preview mode displays 12 vertices, or you can say 12 geometries. So I am just going to make it 1. So as soon as I am just going to make it 1, you can see taken some another shape. Fine. So but yes, that is fine. Again, let me just repeat the step for your convenience. What we had done, we had simply selected this path, Bezier circle, that is fine. Now when I am just trying to like change the geometry of this path, it has changed the geometry, but if you might have seen it properly, the shading part was not changed. The shading part was not changed, but our basic target is to change the shading path rather than to change the basic geometry. So for this, rather than selecting the path, now what I'm just trying to do, I'm just going to select this circle. So as soon as I'm just going to click onto that circle, and again under this resolution panel, I am just going to change from 12 to 1. So now see, now the path geometry has not been changed, but the geometry for circle has been changed to this small rectangle form. This is what I am just aiming for. So once we are done with this, fine. Now what I am just going to do, I am entering into my front mode, just making it bit smaller. Now what we have to do, we have to connect this handle with this mug. Fine. So for this, I need some faces onto cup, which is right now it is missing. So for that, what we have to do, we have to select our mug, and I am entering into my edit mode and pressing edges and Control R. I hope you remember this Control R. This is for loop cut. So what I am just going to do, I am just going to make some faces, and for making some faces, I am just going to take the help of loop cut. Fine. So I am just going to make one loop cut here. Again Control R. Just making another loop cut here. Control R. Making another loop cut here. Control R. Making another loop cut here. But see, there is one issue. Now what again I have to do is, first of all, just try to make the loop cut at the bottom side, and then Control R, make it for this side. Fine. So we had just tried to make some loop cuts. Okay. Again entering into the object mode, nothing has happened. But now I'm just going to do the simple things. But before that, firstly, what I just want that this particular handle should be placed at a proper position. So let me just press R to rotate it around so that it should be properly placed. And after that, I am just entering into my orthographic view, then pressing 7. I am just trying to see where this object is. I am just trying to see where my object is, just going to place it out so that when I am just going to connect both shapes, there is no any problem. So right now it is placed properly. Fine. So now, okay, again I am entering into my front mode, and right now when I'm just going to hit my handle, the problem is handle is still, if you are just going to see, it's a NURBS path. It is still basically 3D software Blender, still it is taking this particular handle as a path, but I just need this handle to be a mesh. So now what I have to do, I have to convert this path into a mesh, and for that the shortcut is Alt plus C. Alt plus C. So as soon as I will hit that, it will say mesh from curve. Fine. So I am just going to hit onto that type of a thing. So as soon as I am just going to click onto this, now this particular shape, this path has been converted into your mesh. Fine. So now if I am just going to delete this circle also, which we had taken in paths, nothing is just going to happen to this particular mesh. So now we have two meshes with us. Now what I'm just going to do, that I'm just going to press both these meshes by hitting Shift, and I'm saying Control J. Control J is for joining the objects. Fine. So now what has happened, now this cup as well as its handle, they have become one object. Fine. This is what I want, and the shortcut for that is Control J. Fine. So now what I'm just going to do, I am just going to enter into the edit mode. Fine. And what we are just going to do is, we have to now add some additional faces onto this handle as well as onto this particular cup, so that it will look like that the handle is getting connected with the edges of that particular mug. For that particular thing, what we have to do, we have to enter into edge mode. So I'm just going to click onto this edge mode. But before that, yes, what you have to do, if I'm just going to simply click onto this edge and try to just get it connected with this, the faces are already being placed onto this particular cup. We have to firstly delete these faces. So for that, firstly I'm just going to hit onto this faces, right click for selecting this face, Shift, right click, delete. What delete? Faces, edges or vertices? I want faces. So now it has been emptied. Fine. Similarly, this is what I'm just going to do. select this by hitting right click, then shift, right click and delete faces. So now see, it has been emptied. Now I am just going to connect the edges of this cup with this handle. For that, what I have to do, I have to just click onto this edges panel, click this edge, then shift top edge of this, and simply press F. As soon as you are just going to hit F, it will create additional faces. Fine. Similarly, shift and this. We are just going to select this and simply press F. At the bottom side also, this one, shift, press F. Similarly here, this, and this, press F. Fine. Similarly, at the downside, this, and this, press F. Here, this, F. Click onto this, just click here, then this, press F. Similarly here, this, and press F. So as soon as I'm just going to click onto that, you can see, if I'm just going to enter into object mode, now the handle has been connected. Fine, this is fine. But still, if you're just going to look into your cup, this is emptied and it doesn't has any volume. So now I just want to add some volume into my cup, and for that particular thing, again I am entering into my edit mode. And what I am just going to do, I am just going to click into this top edge ring. And if you just want to select the complete edge ring, what you have to do, you have to simply click onto one edge and then you have to press Alt. As soon as you are just going to click onto that Alt, whole edge loop would be selected. The corresponding edge loop would be selected. So I have just selected this edge loop, and now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to do some extrude. So for that, I'm simply saying E, extrude, and simply after pressing E, I have to just give a simple left click. So I have just extruded the object onto its place. This is what I just want to aim for. Now, again, what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to scale. Fine. So I have just pressed scale and I'm simply saying 0.90. So like this is what I have just tried to achieve. I have firstly tried to extrude it at that particular point by pressing E and then pressing left mouse click. After that, I hit S for scaling. Then scaling, like I had just given a scaling of 0.90 and 90%. So this is what it has tried to achieve. Now I am just entering into my front view. I am just going to tell you one another shortcut, that is Z. Z is basically a shortcut for toggling between your wireframe mode and solid mode. Fine. So I am pressing Z for entering into my wireframe mode. So now what I am just going to do, again I just want to extrude the thing. I am pressing E. Now extruding in what direction? I want extrude in Z direction. So I am pressing Z and simply I am just dragging this particular thing till to my base. Fine. And I am entering into my object mode. So Z. Now you can see the inner part has got some volume. Fine. So this is what I was just aiming for. Now, right now it is looking very zaggy, means it has some faces. Now I just want to smoothen this particular thing. For smoothening your cup, I'm just telling you one modifier. Right now, this is not the aim of this particular session. So simply, you have to see what I'm just trying to do. In the next session, I'm just going to cover something about the modifiers. So simply see what I'm just trying to do in this last step. I'm just selecting this cup, and under my properties panel, I am hitting this small icon, which is a form of a wrench. Fine. As soon as I'm just going to click onto that wrench and say add modifier, there are n number of modifiers here, and I'm simply clicking on subdivision surface. So as soon as I'm just going to hit onto this subdivision surface, it has tried to smoothen out my object. So I just want to smoothen it a bit more. So under my views panel, I am just going to say 2 or might be 3, up to you, wherever you are just going to get comfortable with the shape of your cup. So this is what has happened. Fine. I think I am just happy with 2 only. Because remember one thing. More smoothing you are just trying to give to that particular object, more rendering time it would take and more heavier would be your file. Fine. So this is what I had just tried to achieve with the subdivision of 2. Fine. But if you are just going to look at the bottom of this cup, there is some problem. Fine. You can see some edges, they are just going in some other direction. So now for like, I just want to handle this type of a thing also. So quickly, I am just entering into my edit mode, 1. And what I am just trying to do is, I am just clicking onto this edge and simply pressing Alt. So it is going to select my whole edge. Fine, again Alt. And I am saying extrude. I think I have just selected some wrong geometry. What I just want is the internal geometry for that thing. So internal one is this, and you have to press Alt and simply press Alt. Fine. 1, and I am saying extrude, and I am just extruding it out. Now if I am just going to look towards my object panel, still some problems are there. What I am just going to do, I would just tackle with this problem in my next session. Right now I think the geometry is looking quite fine to me, irrespective of this n-gons which has created at the base of that particular cup. So I'm pressing Z. Right now it is fine, but I just want to handle with these n-gons. It would take some time, so let me just handle this type of a thing in the next session. So okay, that is fine for me. And you might have remembered that I think in previous session we had just created one plate also. So you can just bring out your plate into this particular scene. So this is the time where I just want to tell you that how you can just bring out your objects into your software, and how you are just going to save your file. So right now in this particular session, I am just trying to tell you one thing, that how you are just going to save your file in Blender. Till now we haven't saved our file in Blender, and for that particular thing what we have to do, simply you have to go to File, Save As. So as soon as you are just going to enter into this Save As mode, so at this particular panel you are just seeing the URL that where you just want to save your file. So let us suppose I have my work on desktop, and I am just saving my file in for Blender's folder. So I have just clicked onto this. I have just given a root path for saving my files, and at this particular place you can give the name of the file, whatever the name you just want to assign to your Blender file. Let us suppose I just want to say mug. So I have say mug, and I will say save as Blender file. So as soon as I have just clicked onto that, so I have saved this file onto my a proper place where I just want to save this file. So thank you all. With this, I am just winding up my session, and in this session we have tried to see some advanced techniques of modeling. We have tried to cover some features like extrude, and like 80 to 90% of your time you are just going to use in Blender is just going to be spent on these extrude type of a features. Thanks for watching.